Yo, what's up? Welcome to my first ever YouTube video. In this video, I'm going to be discussing, in my opinion, complete champ complexity / difficulty tier list for mid laners. The tiers are the 5 hardest, in my opinion, the champs that are really hard, harder than any other champ in the game. Really hard, which are basically just the champions a step below that. They can easily be in top 5 hardest, depending on your opinion. Then we have the hard champions. They're the champs that are hard, especially in high elo. They're not incredibly intuitive. They might have weird reference points. The average and the easy champs can, in my opinion, be interchangeable. League is a hard game on average, so even the easy champs do require skill. Like, playing Lux and Challenger means you are an incredibly good player, but at the same time, I think it is easier to play Lux and Challenger than, say, for example, Azir, right? I think these two are kind of interchangeable, average and easy. And then these two, 5 hardest and really hard, can kind of be interchangeable depending on opinion. I think the real nuance is who's in hard. And then the final tier is just all the champions that, in my opinion, are not actually considered mid laners. For the 5 hardest, we have Azir, Cassio, Yone, Yasuo, and Katarina. Azir is really hard because he is just weird. He is not like a normal mid laner. He's kind of like an ADC, but he is really weak early game, unlike other ADCs, like, for example, Tristana, who's actually pretty strong early. Azir has no early power. His mana issues are really bad. If you don't farm effectively and you fall behind, he is really unforgiving. You need to know when to side lane, when to team fight. This champion is just incredibly complex. Cassio is mechanically one of the most demanding champions in all of League of Legends. You need to hit Q or you will deal 0 damage. You are really immobile, so you kind of have to outplay ganks 1v2. Your range is really short. She's honestly a terrifying counterpick champion, but she's really hard for a counterpick champion. So it's why you see so many pros have a good win rate with her, because if you're really good at the game, you can make her work, but she is objectively really hard. Azir and Cassio, I think, are honestly miles ahead of every other champion on this list. They are just mechanically so difficult. Yone is up next. He is still very hard, obviously, but there's just some things that make him number 3 and not 1 or 2. In lane, he is really weak. That is the hardest part of Yone. In high elo, getting to your 1-item spike with boots is absurdly difficult. But if you can manage to do that, kind of the entire game is yours, right? But getting to that point and not being behind or a burden on your team is hard. Yasuo is mechanically really difficult. You need to win lane. You are prey in side lanes to any champion that wants to kill you. But at the same time, your early power is really effective. You just have to be mechanically on point in order to pilot him. Katarina has no CC, no slows. The entire game is about her. If you are not a 1v9 Katarina, you are basically a useless Katarina. That's it for the 5 hardest. Next, we have the really hard champs. LeBlanc is very difficult because her mobility is just not... It doesn't make up for how hard she falls off. Her laning is really strong, but she falls off of a cliff. Zoe's a very similar story. She falls off of a cliff, but I think she's a little bit more forgiving than LeBlanc is, because you can fundamentally fish for bubbles a lot easier than LeBlanc can fish for chains, in my opinion. A bubble oftentimes means a kill, whereas a chain oftentimes does not mean a kill, right? Orianna, no mobility, you need to win lane, very hard champion. Talia is pretty weak early, but she's very good at everything once you get to 2 items. Her team fighting is good, her side laning is good. She's a very broken champion, she's my OTP, I love her to death. But you have to be good at the game to pilot her, because you will fall behind if you are not on point with your laning because of how weak you are in lane. And at the same time, no combat ultimate makes her unintuitive, in my opinion. Up next, we have the 3 AD assassins mid lane, who are all hard relatively, but they all have their own strengths and weaknesses. Kiana, for example, is incredibly strong in lane and also scales, but mechanically is really hard and is just kind of weird. This champion is funky. She can one-shot entire teams or be completely useless. She's just kind of an enigma. Zed is really weak in lane, like really weak in lane. You kind of have to cheese lanes. But once you get to like level 7, you kind of become Thanos, and it's really frustrating to deal with him. Talon can be strong in some lanes as well, but he's also just... There's just some lanes Talon can't do anything, and he has to impact the map, and that makes him pretty hard. Akali and Sylas are kind of 2 sides of a similar coin. They're both AP assassins that can be played as bruisers. They're both bad against a lot of actual bruisers. Akali's a lot better in sides. Sylas is a lot better at peeling than Akali is. They're both pretty strong in lane, and they're both mechanically hard, but not nearly as mechanically hard as the other champions on this list. So definitely hard champions, but not that hard. I was really indeterminate as to whether or not Mbessa was a mid laner. I really don't think she is, but if she was, she'd be in really hard. The champ is very difficult, very demanding mechanically, very not strong early, but you scale very hard. Xerath is just a dive check, right? He is easy if the enemy team has no dive, and very hard if they have a lot of dive. He's up here because he is probably the most easy champion to kill in all of League of Legends. Twisted Fate is hard because he is basically like win con assessment the champion. You need to understand how to win a game, and if you do not understand how to win this game of League, TF is not for you, right? He's not good in the 1v1. You need to understand, is it your jungle, your top lane, or your ADC? You need to accelerate, and if you pick wrong, you probably lose the game. He's also not that strong in lane. I already talked about Zoe. Next, in the hard list, we have the champions that could be in really hard, but I don't think made the cut, being Ryze, Akshan, and Aurora. Ryze is hard because he is not good later on in the game in a lot of situations because he's pretty short range, and you really need to play side lanes. Taliyah can teamfight way more effectively than Ryze can, but at the same time, Ryze is so much stronger in lane, which is why I think he's a little easier than, say, Taliyah is, though they're kind of similar champions. Akshan is just kind of a weird champion. He is an AD, assassin, marksman, hybrid. He's just not, like, a usual champion. He's kind of not intuitive, because you kind of, weirdly enough, want to play for your one-item spike. You don't really want to just coin flip roams like a lot of Akshan players like to play him as. He's just not, like, intuitive, I guess. Up next, we have Aurora. I think Aurora's the first example of an archetype we'll see very kind of repeatedly throughout the rest of this list, where she is an AP champion that plays with her ultimate and plays with her jungler. There are a lot of those, right? She's kind of harder than the other champions like that because she has no CC, and you kind of need to win lane, but she's very strong in lane, and she has a lot of damage in her kit. So that's why she is where she is, right? No CC makes her hard. Diana and Echo are very similar champions. Echo's worse in lane, Diana's better in lane. They're both champions that really want to play with Fog of War and find a pick on an enemy carry. Diana needs to snowball lane a lot more effectively than Echo does. Echo can kind of neutralize until 9, then impact the map. Diana really wants to be able to solo kill or create a CS lead on the enemy laner and create man advantages using pressure, as opposed to just wave clear like Echo can, although they both do have very good wave clear. Syndra and Victor are similar champions. Syndra has CC on basic abilities, Victor has none. Victor has a little bit more range and a little bit more consistent damage. Syndra has burst, but fundamentally they are both very similar champions to each other. They're both hard because they're immobile, but at the same time, I don't think they're as hard as Orianna or Taliyah because I think they're simpler and they have more scaling to fall back on. Vladimir is just a weird little guy. You kind of need to cheese lane to be able to play him effectively at a high level. Like, you need to use your ghost to get an empowered Q or something like that because of how weak he is in lane. But his scaling is just absurd. Kassadin, speaking of absurd scaling, is hard, but not that hard because you can fundamentally be behind and hit 16 and win the game, but you're also not as strong 16 as you used to be. Like, 11's a bigger spike in power relative to 16 is. So I think Kassadin's kind of lost his way in terms of identity. Hwei is similar to Victor and Syndra. I think he's a little bit easier, in my opinion, because it's pretty easy to neutralize lane and still be very effective, but he's just weird, right? Because you're strong in lane, and your AoE damage is really good, but your agency is actually pretty low compared to the other champions. He's really hard to win games on, but pretty easy to pick up at a baseline level. Just a weird champion way. Ziggs and Xerath and Vel'Koz are all kind of similar sides of the same coin. They both share Xerath's weaknesses of being very easily killable, but I think Vel'Koz is better self-peel, and so does Ziggs with his W, which is why I think they're a lot lower down. I think other than that, they're just easier Xeraths. And Pantheon is honestly not a mid laner, but I have a Pantheon kind of merchant who's a friend, and I think if I didn't include him on this list, he'd be very upset with me. He's hard, but he is not as hard as say, the other champions on this list. You really need to utilize your ult to make a man advantage, and you really need to utilize your early game power, because your mid game is pretty bad before you, again, pick up steam and become a monster late game. Mel is similar to the other control mages on this list, Syndra, Victor, Orianna, Talia, but she's a lot easier in my opinion. She is very, very, very reliant on good W usage and finding the one key ability to reflect in a fight. Her laning is pretty straightforward though. Her Q, E, and W all make sense. She's an average difficulty mid laner in my opinion. Lissandra and Ahri and Nico and Swain are all examples of the play with your jungler, play with your ult. They all have various things that make them harder or easier depending on the game. For example, Ahri is really, really, really good with stuff like Jin Zhao that have guaranteed setup, whereas Nico is better at providing setup. Swain is good at comps that want to run into him, and Lissandra is good with dive comps. It honestly just depends on what you want. Lissandra's more of a setup champ. Ahri's more of a need setup champ. It just depends what you want in your mid laner. They're all not super hard. I think they're kind of the baseline for mid lane difficulty. Up next, we have Fizz, Heimer, and Vex, who are the last kind of funky champions on this list, in my opinion. Fizz is one of those champions that's actually, like, up here if you're in high-elo, but down here and you're in low-elo. It just depends how effectively people can punish your E. But I generally don't see him a lot in high-elo, which is why I put him where I think the majority of Fizz players are. He's just kind of a weird champion. Honestly, a lot of champs in LoL are weird. That's kind of what makes the game fun, right? Heimerdinger is, like, the definition of not a mid laner, but if you don't put him here, like, where is he most comfortable, if that makes sense? Like, if he's not a mid laner, is he a top laner, a jungler, a support? Just a very strange champion. Just very bad against certain champs and very good against certain champs, right? Like, he's just not fun to play against if you're Yone, but if you're Syndra, you're gonna have no issues. Vex is hard because she's incredibly committal, but that is literally it. Her combo usage is pretty simple. Honestly, she belongs more with the play with your R sort of champs than she does with, like, Heimer or Fizz. Finally, the easy category. All these champions are not ranked, unlike the other tiers. It's just kind of like pick your poison. They're all easy for various, like, different, like, means, I guess. Like, Anivia's easy because at 6, you just don't have to lane him anymore. Galio's easy because post first base, you are absurdly hard to kill. Annie has very, very, very easy lane, and then you just want to play with your one-item spike, play with your jungler. Point and click is the name of the game with Annie. She has nothing you can miss. Azel's very simple, but at the same time, I don't know. Actually, I don't even like Azel in easy. I'm going to put him in average. He doesn't belong with the rest of these champions. He is a hyper-scaling champion that just really, really needs counterpick, in my opinion. Like, you can't blind him because Yone will completely mess you up. But in a good Azel game, like as a counterpick to Malzahar, he is not super hard. Lux is very easy because ER one-shots the wave. You don't have to lane. Brand is super easy because WE one-shots the lane. You don't have to lane. His damage is really high. Cho'Gath is the most El Clasico tank mid besides Galio, in my opinion. His sustain is really high. He is very, very, very simple. Karma is pretty easy. She is the best enchanter mid, in my opinion, if you want an enchanter to play. Very simple reference points. Very fun champion. Highly recommend. And then Veigar and Malzahar are just the low elo farming champions. Very simple. Very effective at teaching mid lane. I think they're very, very easy to execute. Alright, that's my list. Let me know in the comments how you think I did, and thank you for watching. This is my first ever YouTube video, so it's probably going to suck in quality, but I hope to increase the quality of my future YouTube videos to come. So, thank you so much.